Yo, what's going on guys? Arekkz here, and in today's video I want to talk to you guys about my top 5 games from PSX. You guys know that I was there last weekend, and while I appreciate it's been a week since then, I've still been uploading some videos from there, things like Nex Machina, which dropped earlier this week, also things like Wipeout, Crash Bandicoot. So if you guys haven't seen any of those, definitely check them out. I'll leave the PSX playlist in the description box down below. But in short, loads of awesome games were announced, I played loads of awesome games, so I figured why not list my top 5. So if you do enjoy this, a like would be super appreciated. Let me know in the comments down below what your top 5 games were from PSX if you guys saw it. But let's get started. So, in at number 5 is Nioh. Now Nioh is a game that I've actually covered on this channel before, back when the alpha and the beta demos came out, but it's a game that doesn't come out until next year. I believe launch is planned for somewhere around February 2017. Either way, it's an action role-playing game developed by Team Ninja, and it's often referred to as the Japanese Dark Souls. I appreciate Dark Souls is also a Japanese game, but what I mean is Dark Souls set in Japan. It is very unforgiving, it's a brutal game, and as someone that got into Dark Souls quite late, in fact Dark Souls 3 was my first Dark Souls game, I got absolutely hooked on that one, and knowing that it was the last in the series, I kind of needed something else to give me that fix. So having played the Nioh Alpha, the beta, and now the demo at PSX, I can definitely say this is a game I am so looking forward to. It's not one for the faint-hearted, and also if you guys don't like crushing difficulty, then you might not get the most out of this. But if you do like the ultimate challenge, and you like the kind of feeling of satisfaction once you finally beat that boss that's probably going to beat you about 100 times, then yeah, Nioh is super impressive. It's also a game that is being optimized for 4K, so if you guys have a PS4 Pro, you can take advantage of that. It's also got different settings, so as opposed to some games which are just upscaled, Nioh has different settings you can choose between depending on whether you want a more cinematic experience with better visuals, or whether you want kind of the high impact, high frame rate gameplay, so you can of course favor gameplay and framing over visuals. So either way, some cool options there. But the PSX demo had 2 missions. I'm hopefully going to be able to bring you guys a video from PSX. I actually recorded 2 different demos, but sadly the hard drive got corrupt, so I'm working on trying to fix that. But regardless, 2 demos, both of which had a different boss at the end. There is a boss which is basically a frog that stands on its 2 legs. It fights with a long spear, has a long tongue. Really, really cool boss. Probably one of my favourite ones that I've seen so far. And also another kind of witch-like boss. Massive cape, really long fingernails. Very, very creepy, but really cool. Also, the other cool thing about the demo was we got a look at the kusarigama, which is a Japanese weapon. It's effectively sickles and a chain, so it's a really, really cool weapon, very fast-paced. It's also a mixture of kind of close range and medium range, because of course the chain gives you some good reach. So, in short, very, very awesome game, something I'm super excited for, and something that I know I will sink hours into, partly because of the difficulty, but also partly because it's just steeped in Japanese mythology, which is a topic that really interests me, and the gameplay is going to keep me coming back. So, that is number 5. Moving over to number 4, Nex Machina. This is a game that I have already uploaded a video for earlier this week. If you guys haven't seen it, I will link it down below. It is the new game being developed by the guys over at Housemarque and Eugene Jarvis. It is a top-down twin-stick shmup set in a sort of futuristic time period, with the story being that there are basically machines that have gained consciousness. They've decided to rise up, fight back against the humans. You know, the usual kind of like robotic story. But it's one of those sort of chaotic, hectic, bullet hell games where you're going to need to have some lightning fast reflexes to kind of deal with the bosses. Really, really nice looking visuals, especially when you're fighting so many different things on screen and bullets are just flying everywhere. It just looks fantastic. It plays amazingly. And if you guys have played anything like Resogun, Super Stardust HD, Alienation, anything like that, then you'll know already what this game's about. But either way, very, very awesome game. Definitely on the top of my list. So that is something I highly recommend you guys check out. Then in at number 3, this is something I completely didn't see coming, and that was No Kuni 2. Now during PSX, all we got was a trailer, so it's going to be a while before we see anything, you know, more in depth. And at this stage, we don't actually know a great deal about the game. We do, of course, know that it's just set in, you know, a new world, new story, new characters. But if you guys never played the original one, it is just a really, really nice, enjoyable game. It's an RPG, developed by Level 5. The animations are done by Studio Ghibli, which is precisely why it looks like a Studio Ghibli film. Really, really awesome, really charming game. The combat itself has your usual RPG elements, but you also go around kind of capturing and taming monsters or kind of beasts and whatnot, and they can then fight for you, and these kind of form your party. So there are loads of kind of things to go after, loads of things to kind of collect, and loads of things to sort of work towards. But the first one was an incredible game to play through. I really, really enjoyed it. So now, knowing that we're going to get a second one, means I can of course return to that universe. It'll be interesting to see whether there is any connection with the first one, or whether this is a complete separation. But regardless, if you guys enjoyed Ni no Kuni 1, then Ni no Kuni 2 is going to be a given. Then moving over to number 2, a lot of you guys are probably going to be like, hold on a minute, how is this not number 1? But number 2, The Last of Us Part 2. Now, this is a game that I am super looking forward to, and the only reason it's not number 1, well, you guys will find that out very shortly, but it's very, very early days for this project. While development did start back in 2014, I don't imagine we're going to see this released until sometime 2018, so you're going to have to wait quite a while for this game. And despite the fact that they had a trailer during PSX, and they also had an entire hour-long panel, which I sat through because I wanted to find out more, they're still being purposefully vague about exactly where this game is going, the story, the characters, the gameplay, what you'll be doing. So right now we know very little beyond the trailer. We do of course know that while the first Last of Us was focused around Joel and Ellie, this one, The Last of Us Part 2, is much more around Ellie and Joel. Ellie is basically your main character, and Part 2 will be told through her, whereas of course in Part 1 she was very young, so the focus was a lot more on Joel and his journey. But you can of course tell from the trailer and also what they said in the panel that Ellie has, to quote what the developers said, pardon my language, but she has seen some shit, and she's obviously not very happy. She's got her own agenda, and that will obviously be told throughout the story. This one also takes place 5 years after the original, so of course there's going to be a lot that's happened since then, so I imagine we'll be filled in with that when we play the game. But regardless, if you played number 1, then you're no doubt going to be super excited for this. Honestly, I didn't know whether we would get a sequel after number 1. Number 1 was just one of those games that was so perfect that just didn't necessarily need to have a sequel. That doesn't mean to say in any way, shape or form that Part 2 is not welcome. On the contrary, I am very much looking forward to it. But the developers even said themselves that Part 1 finished in such a way where people just didn't think that there was going to be a Part 2. And then when they announced it, there were a lot of people that were quite worried that they might end up tainting the way that the game ended, sort of ruining that story by bringing it back unnecessarily. But they just said, have faith in them, they are going to do this game justice and tell a very good story. So I'm super looking forward to it. The guys over at Naughty Dog know what they're doing. So watch this space. I'm sure we'll see some stuff, hopefully in the new year. And then finally, in at number 1, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Now, yes, I appreciate some of you guys will probably disagree with my numbering, but as someone that absolutely loves fighting games, I know they're not necessarily something I cover too much on this channel, but it is a genre that I used to invest a heavy amount of time in, and Marvel vs. Capcom 3 was probably one of my most played fighting games, apart from maybe the Super Smash Bros. Series, but besides that, Marvel vs. Capcom 3, I invested so much time in that game, and I absolutely love it. It's a combination of two things that I really love, of course, Capcom, some of their characters, and the Marvel Universe as well. But this is also something that myself, and of course the fighting game community, have been wanting for many, many years, so to finally see this be announced is incredible. Of course, again, at this stage, very early, it's destined to launch next year. We got a little bit of gameplay at the end of the Capcom Cup tournament, so we got to look at 4 characters currently, but there will be a completely new roster. Now, rumors that have been circulating around seem to think that they're going to go towards a slightly more current Marvel roster, and while this hasn't been officially confirmed, that would mean that they would be looking more towards the movies right now, so you might not see some of the originals, which is an interesting choice. It means you might not necessarily see things like Sentinel or Wolverine, but you'll more than likely see characters from things like the Avengers, Ant-Man, Guardians of the Galaxy, stuff like that. Basically the current movies, that's kind of where you can probably expect to see a lot of the Marvel roster lie, and that will probably also correspond with Capcom. Think of like current Capcom games, things that we've seen more recently, and maybe some of the original characters might drop. Obviously, again, in the new year, we will no doubt hear and see a lot more. Typically, these sort of games, especially fighting games, Capcom like to do this. Whenever there are kind of fighting game tournaments throughout the year, then they like to sort of announce new characters and stuff. So keep your eyes on things like EVO and CEO next year, and hopefully we'll get something there. But either way, that is pretty much it. That is my top 5. Now, a couple of very quick honorable mentions, one of which is Horizon Zero Dawn. This is a game that I am so looking forward to. The only reason I didn't mention it is because I have still not had a chance to play this, despite the fact that I saw it at E3 and Gamescom and now at PSX. I've just still never had a chance to actually go hands-on, so until I do, I'm going to reserve judgment, but it's still a game that looks incredible and I cannot wait to play. And also the Uncharted 4 DLC. Of course, I loved Uncharted 4. I played that through twice, in fact, basically the week it came out, so really enjoyed that one. But Uncharted 4 DLC brings back Chloe, one of the coolest characters, and it'll be really kind of cool to sort of see her journey and see sort of like, you know, where that goes. So chance to kind of dive back into the Uncharted universe is always a good thing, so I'm looking forward to that. But besides that, that is pretty much it. So those are my top 5 games. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. Is there anything that I didn't mention that you think should have been there? Either way, let me know. But thanks for watching. Take it easy. Catch you next time. Peace out.
No!